Jemaine.
You have you can put these on, you can hear what they're saying in English. Right? Oh, it's loud. Wait a minute. You know how to turn it down? You just turn this down.
So for the moment, dear photographers, please take some of your time. These are in case there's a question in French.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But otherwise...
All right, we'll take them out. We can take them out, and only when they're in French do we have to.
You know, just in case. I prefer you to have it. Although I know your French is excellent, of course.
Here. You want this low or high? Like that, like that, like that. Okay.
Thank you very much, dear photographers. I think it's time for the press conference to begin. If you could take your seats. Please.
These are all people who've seen it.
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much
Yeah.
for going back to your seats. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the press conference for the BFG, Steven Spielberg's new film screening tonight, Out of Competition, adapted from Roald Dahl's beloved classic. Let me introduce you first to the talents present on this stage who brought some magic to Cannes. To your far right, Steven Spielberg's longtime friends and partners in Amblin Entertainment, since Raiders of the Lost Ark for him and E.T. for her, one of Cannes' most enchanting moments. They produce most of his films. In the real world of Hollywood, they are truly respected giants. Franck Marshall and Kathleen Kennedy. To her right, a wonderfully versatile actress whose performance in Woody Allen's Vicky Cristina Barcelona earned her a first Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress. More recently, she appeared in Iron Man 3 and The Gift. Today, as Mary, she's the Queen's handmaid and one of the human beings. British-American actress Rebecca Hall. To my left, a New Zealand actor, comedian and musical artist, best known for Flight of the Conchords, which brought him international recognition and a nomination at the Emmys for Outstanding Lead Actor. As Flesh Lump Eater, he is Giant Country's most cannibal and murderful giant, Jemaine Clement. To his left, a lady with a brilliant career in theater, film, and television. She won the Olivier Award for Best Actress last year, appeared in Matchpoint, Pride and Prejudice, or the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, to name a few, and the world knows her as Isabel Crawley from Downton Abbey. British actress Penelope Wilton, the Queen of England, also known as Her Majesty the Queenie. To her left, the young lady who plays Sophie and is simply, absolutely magic. British actress Ruby Barnhill. Next to Rebecca Hall, this impressive British theatre actor, winner of several Olivier and Tony Awards, proved the world was his stage by winning the Academy Award and BAFTA Award for Best Supporting Actor in Steven Spielberg's Bridge of Spies. Mark Rylance is our big, friendly giant. Last but not least, a man who needs no introduction. He's a living legend. Ladies and gentlemen, three-time Academy winner, Steven Spielberg. Well, my first question will go to you, Kathleen Kennedy and Franck Marshall. You've shared many dreams with Steven Spielberg and made them come to life. This time, it's a Walt Disney film uniting Roald Dahl's voice and Steven Spielberg's vision, three of the major storytellers of all times. How challenging was your journey into Giant Country?
The challenge was many, many years, I must say, and I think that we're incredibly fortunate, even though It was a long-time conversation that we had with Stephen over the years. It was a tremendous challenge to have the technology catch up with our ability to tell the story in the way that we did. That was probably the biggest challenge.
Well, I mean, I'm now turning my questions to Penelope Wilton, Rebecca Hall, Jemaine Clement, and Ruby Barnhill. I can only imagine that being cast by Steven Spielberg for the BFG must be close to being taken to dream country. How magical and daunting was this experience for each of you, and how did you make these iconic, beloved characters your own? Ha. Shall we start with you, young lady?
Okay.
We know you're fearless.
It's absolutely amazing to know that you've been cast in such a amazing and magical film. It's like it is a dream come true. It's really amazing.
What about you, Rebecca Hall, for instance?
Well, I think the BFG was the first book that I read to myself in my quiet voice in my head, if you see what I mean. So I feel like it was, and also Stephen's films were some of the first that I loved as a child. So the two combined was magic.
Well, and of course, the question goes to the Queen as well.
Yes, and I got a call saying that Steven Spielberg wanted me to play the Queen, and I said, no, come on now, be serious. I'm doing Downton Abbey, and I'm surrounded by aristocrats who are pushing it, saying the Queen. And also, you're pushing it, saying Steven Spielberg, for goodness sake. And they said, no, really, he done. I said, well, where does he want to meet me? He said, he doesn't want to meet you, he wants you to... Well, I was flabbergasted. Also, I was doing Downton, so I didn't think I'd ever get there. But when I did, it was one of the most magical experiences in every way that I've ever had. Steven is a director who knows exactly what he wants, and it's the sort of director I like, because he says, no, that's wrong, yes, that's right, do it quicker, do it far, and I know where I am. So I adored working with him, and I hope I've given the Queen a good rendition. She's been played a lot, so this is my version of the Queen. So we'll just have to wait and see how that goes down.
And Jemaine Clement, obviously you do a very impressive giant. How much fun was it for you to sort of cooperate him and play him?
It was a lot of... Oh, does this work? Yes. I don't sound very giant without it. It was very exciting, very fun, and I was excited when the book came out in 1982. I remember my school teacher reading it. I couldn't read it with my inside voice yet, I guess. Our school teacher read it, and so many years later being excited about it again. And I've had so many imaginary conversations with Steven Spielberg where I've pretended in front of my friends I'm being called by him. Sorry, it's Spielberg. And to actually work with him. Maybe they'll think they were real, those conversations, even though the phone was often just a bottle or something.
As in the film, absolutely. Now, floor is to you, dear gentlemen. All right.
Is this on?
First question to you.
Roger Friedman from Showbiz 411. Great movie. Stephen, question for you. And Penelope, I'm going to start with you, actually. Just, do you feel like you finally trumped the Dowager Countess? Now that you're Queen?
Definitely. Yes, definitely.
You finally put one over on her.
Yes, I have. And it's about time, too.
Stephen, so many serious movies in the last few years, like Bridge of Spies and Lincoln, all terrific. But this sort of recaptured the spirit of E.T. With the same writer as E.T. And it's very different, but it gave that same sort of, whimsical feel. And I felt like there were a couple of maybe little riffs that were maybe signals back to it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, it was, just for me, it was not really like going back to the past for me. It was, revisiting, something that I've always loved to do, which is just to tell stories that are from the imagination. And when I do history movies, the imagination has to be put aside. to vet the history and to do it accurately. And so there's not a lot of imagination, except in interpreting a performance or finding the right camera angle to illuminate the storytelling. But with this, there were no barriers. They were gone, and I felt liberated. I felt like I could do anything on this, and it just brought back feelings I had as a younger filmmaker, and that I could tell a story that was certainly a story that was because of the great writing of Roald Dahl, but also because it was my good friend who wrote E.T., who adapted the BFG, Melissa Matheson, and we have such a wonderful association. Our relationship between Melissa, Franck, Kathy, and myself has gone on for years, and not a lot of movies in between E.T. and this. But when I heard that Kathy had hired Melissa to adapt the book, I think at that moment there was a little voice whispering in my ear, almost like Ruby was saying, like, wouldn't it be wonderful? What if? Wouldn't it be a dream come true if this came together and I got to be the director? So this was a wonderful reunion and a very bittersweet, as it turns out, time for us.
Question to our left, please.
Hello, Stephen, Vertigo Magazine, Belgium. Going on with the sad and happy question about working together with Melissa Matheson. Kathleen, Franck, what made you think of asking her? And Stephen, what did she bring to the story for you?
Well, I would argue that Melissa was probably our first choice, but Melissa had not been writing screenplays for a number of years. She was raising a family and very involved in other things. And we had actually taken a project called Ponyo, which was the Miyazaki animated movie. And we brought Melissa in to do some work on that. And she had an incredible time. And so in the course of doing that work, we started talking about this project, which we'd been working on for a number of years. And Melissa immediately sparked to it. For many of the reasons that Stephen was talking about, it embodies all the things that Melissa is.
Question here, second.
ידיעות אחרונות. מזל טוב לאבי פילם.
Frank was going to say something just for a moment.
I was just going to say that we first optioned the book in 1993, so it has been a long journey. And Melissa came on board probably 10 years ago.
Not quite that long. Yeah,
eight years ago.
But the irony is that, to be here is rather amazing because E.T. premiering here at the Cannes Film Festival is, I would say, one of the highlights of my career, and I think Stephen would agree. And so the fact that this book was written when that movie came out is a rather nice thing.
Question here.
אמיר קמינר from Israel, ידיעות אחרונות, מזל טוב, a lovely film here. Hi. Roald Dahl published few anti-Jew statements, very well known and very terrible ones. Did you aware for that? Did you hesitate to adapt his book because of that?
No.
Especially in such a period that it's trendy to be anti-Jew again?
No, I didn't. I wasn't aware of any of Roald Dahl's, personal, stories. I wasn't. I was focused on the story he wrote. I had no idea of anything that purportedly was assigned to him that he might have said. So no. I just this is a story about embracing our differences and the values in the book and the values in the film. Those were the values I wanted to impart in the telling of this story.
Question over here to our right.
Hi, Jason Gorber from Cineplex.com and Twitch Film. We're in the land of cinema. This is where cinema was invented. It's also where the first people who actually decided to articulate for directors that they could balance between art and commerce. Mr. Spielberg, you've made a career of doing this balance. I'm wondering if you could reflect upon your own challenges of getting that balance right between reaching a wide audience and working for your own personal artistic vision. And those that have now a chance to work with Steven, both as producers and as performers, what does it mean when you think of a Steven Spielberg film?
Well, the balance is, I have absolutely, I don't really think when I'm directing or choosing a project to direct, unless it's a sequel, and of course if you're doing a sequel, you're only doing it because the first film was very successful. So that's where the anticipation of at least you've got an audience that is going to kind of raise the bar on you. So that's when I'm working for the audience, when their expectations are very high, not because I'm the director, but because the film that came before was was attended and became quite popular. But I can't make movies and talk and think about balancing. I just express what I express, and I'm different, I think, as a person every year, and that comes out in the wash of the film, nowadays, and I don't really focus on that at all. This is probably the only time I start to focus on, this is the only time I start to think about that when you ask me a question like that. But for the most part, it's just work. It's great, fun, hard, engaging work, and I just love it. And if I didn't love it, I would just, set out to sea and just sail the oceans for the rest of my life. This is something I'll be doing for the rest of my life.
Question over there, please.
This is Iqbal from Bangladesh. Question to Mr. Steven Spielberg. After, making the Hollywood history and changing the Hollywood film arena and winning all the major awards in the world, what's your inspiration to make more and more extraordinary films like BFG?
Thank you. I'm just looking for a good story. I mean, I think all of us up here, we're always on the hunt for a good story. And sometimes those good stories are right in front of our faces. I read BFG to my kids when they were growing up. I have 7 children. I read the book to a lot of my children growing up, so I became the BFG while I was the storyteller of that book. And I sort of know what it feels like to be BFG, at least with my kids below me and me above them with the book between us. I know how that feels. So all of my decisions of the choices I make about the movies, the stories I tell, this was not a film that I had, been working on for 10, 15 years. This is something that I quite spontaneously, when Kathy said she had the rights, thought this, I remembered how beautiful my kids responded to the book and thought, this is something that speaks to me. And I think I can illuminate it a little bit more. The what?
If the mystery Stephen Hawking, the scientist, is true, and is there anything, E.T. is true, the extraterrestrial things, and another world-like monster, or the aliens, is there another Steven Spielberg in the other world, you think?
Yes, there is, and he lives on planet Bizarro.
Question here, please. Center, yes. Could you stand up, please?
Ali Muallim from Picture World, Iran. It is your welcome back to the children's world in this film, and I must ask you that is there any metaphor for these giants in this film in the present world? Do you have an intention to take a metaphor for this giants in the world, and how it's happened in England and with Queen?
The Queen. Oh, well, we'll see what the Queen thinks when the time comes, won't we? I certainly think that there's a lot of values in this movie that I think are. I mean, this experience of telling the story of BFG was a non-cynical experience, and so with a complete lack of cynicism and basically a comparison of not how big is BFG compared to how tall Sophie is, but how big do their hearts grow together, was a metaphor that led me to want to tell the story.
Question over here, please stand up.
Hi, Hannah Fennis from the Daily Telegraph. Ruby, you were a really terrific Sophie. I just wondered if you could tell us a bit more about your acting experience before now and what it's like to be in Cannes. And Mr. Spielberg, there were a few things added and adapted from the book, and I wondered if you could say a bit about how you took those decisions, especially having the Queen whiz popping.
Go ahead.
Well, I have done, the only thing that I had ever done before doing this incredible film was I had gone to a drama class for a very long time, and I'd done a television show for a children's TV show, so it feels really magical and amazing to think that I'm here now, and I'm so excited to be in like Cannes. It's amazing. Yeah, it's very.
What was the question to me? Oh well, we certainly had a license to, the book, a book and a film have a lot of different, I guess you could call them propulsion systems, and and we just added a little more plot to the movie version of the book, and which we did in compliance and in complete cooperation with the entire Dahl estate. They were with us, they read every draft that we developed, and they were very happy to sign off on our choices. And we had a great relationship. We are enjoying a very wonderful relationship with the Dahl family, and we felt the Queen should certainly have equal time with everyone else during that sequence. We didn't want to leave the Queen out, and we think she'll have a good sense of humor. We think she has a good sense of humor, and she'll be fine with that.
Question
yes, Mark said equal rights of expression. Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Spielberg, to your right. This is Pierpaolo Festa from Italy, Film.it. A few years ago, I was lucky enough to talk to you during Tintin, and you told me that you were struggling a little bit to find a good love story. It was the challenge that you still didn't face. Are you still struggling with that, and why the need to tell a love story? The more you go on with life, the more you get romantic. Please, tell me about that.
Well, I think this is a love story, the BFG. I think it's a different kind of love story, but it's a love story that children have for their grandparents. It's a love story that grandparents have toward their children. I think this is probably the closest I've ever come to telling a love story.
Question over there, please, to our far left.
I'm David from Movie View. My question is for Penelope. You were wonderful in the film. I was wondering, in your opinion, what makes the Queen so funny, even in some serious films?
What makes her so funny? Well,
what makes the Queen so funny?
Well, I think it's putting the Queen in situations that we don't always imagine she'd be in. So it's a bit like laughing in church, I think. You have the same reaction. You shouldn't really be doing it, but you can't help it. So I think that's what happens with the Queen. She's somebody who actually, I don't know what I'm going to do when she goes, because she's always been the Queen. She's just been there. And she's somebody who we have enormous respect for, but mostly great love for the Queen. And but we also know she has a wonderful sense of humour. So I think my answer is that for all those reasons, we like to see her do things that probably we shouldn't.
Well, obviously, the film takes place a lot in giants' land and territory and country. And I'm turning to the two very different giants on this panel. I mean, obviously, Mike Rylance, you are extremely different from the part we saw you in Bridge of Spies, and you certainly make a very formidable character. And I was wondering how you were guided into your performance by Steven Spielberg. How did you embrace your characters, these giant characters, and make them your own?
I don't know, really. Can't remember. He's just very encouraging. When he likes something, he's very clear that that's right. And so you just offer up different options, as many options as you can. And that's all, really.
Was it interesting for you to also embrace, performance capture and all this, because your eyes are so alive on screen that we absolutely have the impression that the magic works?
I don't know what Jemaine feels about the performance capture, but for me it was not unlike being in a rehearsal room of a theatre play before you go onto the set. And sometimes there aren't props and there are a lot of people standing around, and You just have to use your imagination. And of course, there's no sense of where the audience is, so there was no camera or any need to hit marks. There was just Ruby and I generally playing in a space that's called a volume, and just using our imagination. And Stephen could actually stand as close as he is now between us. And I think I remember actually asking you to stand a little bit further away because you were laughing so much. But so it was very different and also similar to being in the theatre.
What about you, Jemaine?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's in most films you have camera setups to wait for all the time. You know, I do my part, and then someone else does their part, and someone else does their part where the camera moves. But there's none of that, so it's more like doing a play. And as for preparing, we were sent to me and the other bad giants. We all went to movement coaching together, and we would have weights around our ankles to make us move like we're much heavier than we are, and that took quite a while to get that right. We can watch it on screen. It was very interesting.
Question here, please. Yes, please stand up. You have the mic. Don't be shy.
Yes. Question for Mr. Spielberg. It's Amit Roy from the Telegraph of India. Could you say something about your collaboration with Rylance, who have a credit at the start of the film? And it seemed to me that although this film has a lovely English resonance, it's really a story for the world. And is that what you do? That try and find good stories that are set in a particular culture, but transcend cultures and boundaries?
Well, that would be the ultimate dream from the dream country of Hollywood, is that a film or any film that you're associated with, you know, has meaning beyond your own country and or even beyond English-speaking countries. So that would be my hope. That there are feelings and emotions in this film that everybody can relate to. That there doesn't need to be a language barrier with this, as long as the different countries could figure out how to say snozcumber in their own language, or whizpopper, or trogglehumper, or fizzwizard. If we could figure all that out from country to country, every movie's an orphan until it's adopted by someone, and we hope this movie finds a lot of homes. And I also just want to say that Rylance has been with me for 7 years. They have stuck with us through thick and through thin, and they joined us with my new company, Amblin Partners, and they were fully behind the BFG, and we have just a fantastic relationship with Anil Ambani and Amitabh Jhunjhunwala, who's here at Cannes. Amitabh's here, and we continue to enjoy working with them from Rylance Big Media.
Question here, please.
Hi, Benjamin de Neufeglis pour Ciné-Série Mag. Thanks for this beautiful movie. My question is in the continuation of the first question. Donc to Stephen and Kathleen and Franck. How did you do to find back a childhood vision, which is less dark than in E.T., War Horse, or War of the Worlds?
Okay.
Well, I'd answer that because I would actually turn the question around to be about Stephen as a filmmaker, because I think that in the years that we've all been working together, I think what Stephen consistently does is he makes very optimistic, hopeful stories. That's often what he's looking for, and I think that that's what he has communicated time and again in his movies. And I think it's odd that that has become something that we don't find in movies that often. So I think we're all very lucky that he's telling those kind of stories.
Question over there.
Yes, hi. My name is Travolta Cooper, America and the Caribbean Tempo Networks. First of all, congratulations to everyone on the panel. This is, in one of my very humble opinion, one of the greatest movies of the year. My question is for Mr. Spielberg and Mr. Rylance. Spielberg, by the time we get to the third act, where we're now at Buckingham Palace, You're a master storyteller. I think everyone here can agree. You strike this wonderful tone because now fantasy meets reality. Was it difficult striking that tone and keeping the tone you'd already set, in the first and second act? And Mr. Rylance, this character, of course, is the stuff of mythology. Did you have a model? Did you have a character, that inspired you to give this great and brilliant performance? Thank you very much.
Yeah, I always try and have a model in reality for any character, and usually a few people. And this one reminded me of a couple of people who worked in my grandfather's garden in Kent when I was a child, Ruby's age, but also a very great friend of mine, Mr. Jimmy Gardner, who was a tail gunner during the Second World War, and had an incredible long life and a great kindness and love for life. So those two people particularly came to my mind, as well as all of the odd quirks and sides of my own character.
If I can just throw in very quickly that when we were shooting BFG, Mark showed me a short film his daughter had made several years before where Mark appeared as a giant at the end, looking through a window of all things, which I thought was kind of, once again, another 6 degrees of separation. And for me, your question about, we come to the palace, about tone, no, when I read the book, I remember when I was reading the book, and when you read a book, you hear yourself reading it, and then, of course, you're watching for the reaction that your kids are having to hearing it. And I remember that when we got to civilization and we returned from the foreignness of giant country and we came back to the familiarity of London, I remember my kids got really, really excited. Instead of saying, "Oh, we're back to civilization," they wanted to see, and they were excited every time there was something describing how tall BFG was and how small everybody was at the palace. And there was something really special about the Queen's breakfast from the book, and I think it's one of my favorite parts of the book is the Queen's breakfast. And I remember how exciting it was because we were shooting in all of these abstract sets because everything was created. BFG's cottage is created. Ruby is on the only live-action set in the cottage. She's on an oversized table with huge jars, but nothing's in the jars except just lights lighting her that the dreams would later be placed in. And I remember when we finally all came to the palace, we were on a normal set, normal size, normal scale for all of us. And so we felt very normal, but suddenly here's Mark, 25 feet in the air on a scissors lift, lording over all of us, once again in his motion capture seat, giving those wonderful reactions. And so in a way, it was a relief when we finally got, and we saved the Queen's breakfast for the very, very end of production. That was a nice way to end the film.
Question here, please.
Brian Johnson from Maclean's magazine in Canada. A couple of quick questions for Mr. Spielberg. The first one, just about the tone of the film. You really seem to capture England, and you're an American director, and of course you've got English actors, but how did you rely on your cast to kind of make sure you got it right? And the second question, which is more whimsical, we're talking a lot about dreams, and you've talked a lot about dreams, and there's DreamWorks, and there's Dreamland, and the American dream, and the Hollywood dream. Can I ask you about your own dream life and what role it plays in your creative process, if at all?
Well, my dream life is my creative process. It really is. Even when I'm, in the depths of history, there still is a dream there. That's operating. So, everything we do, everything you do, and everything I do is we play with each other's dreams, and you make my dreams sound better, maybe. When I sleep, no, you don't want to know about that. Right. Okay, that's true. That's true. At least the last 2 years I haven't had a chance to because I've been working so much. But in terms, you asked a question about the being in England, and my first Raiders, the first Raiders movie in 1980. It was the first time I made a picture in Great Britain, and I've made so many movies in England, and I produced so many films in England that I really feel like I'm I feel like I know England, and I feel like it's my adopted country. And my next movie is being shot in England, and I just have a real affinity. And of course, casting this film, this is one movie. You do not want to cast American actors in and then have to release it in Great Britain and have to answer the question, why did you do that? The greatest actors for me are the actors on this dais in this picture. And the thing I pride myself in is I love casting. I think casting is one of the most important things I can do. It's one of the most important contributions I can make, even more than directing the actors. Just the casting of the right actor saves me a lot of verbosity. And I've always wanted to work with Mark Rylance, and we got a chance to do 2 films in a row, and being able to see Mark go from the tight-lipped and close to the vest, yet very emotional Rudolph Abel, to suddenly the expansive and generous and sometimes cowardly and always courageous BFG. Just to see that before my own eyes, that transformation was one of the most astonishing experiences I've ever had in my entire career working with anybody with these 2 films back to back. And with Rebecca and with Penelope and Jemaine, who speaks English but comes from New Zealand.
I speak it, yeah, that's true.
I just feel that we were a family, and we continue to be a family.
Question to our far left, please.
Kyle Buchanan, New York Magazine. Mr. Spielberg, you mentioned that you worked back-to-back with Mark Rylance. It's about to be back-to-back-to-back, as I understand it, because he's going to be in Ready Player One as well. So I'm curious what your partnership is like on set, and given this streak, should we assume that you'll find a role for him in the next Indiana Jones?
Well, I just feel lucky to know him. I feel very, very lucky that I got to meet Mark, and I think I'm even luckier that we became friends. You know, I have a lot of acquaintances over 44 years of directing television and film, and I haven't brought a lot of people into my life from the movies, and you know, I have such respect for Mark, but we have so much fun together as friends, as buddies. And, you know, and that's not why I'm casting him in Ready Player One. I'm casting him in Ready Player One because there's nobody better to play Halliday than Mark Rylance, if you know the book. But to have the friendship and to have the professional working relationship is just a dream come true. That's my golden fizz wizard.
Last question over here to our far right.
Hi, my name's Livia, and I'm from Vice, Australia. And my question's for Mr. Spielberg. Obviously, the BFG is a very magical film, and I'd love to know how you still believe in magic in a world where moments from the red carpet nightly there are homeless people begging in the streets and African migrants struggling to make a few euros by selling sunglasses from China.
All of us have to believe in magic. The worse the world gets, the more magic we have to believe in, because that magic will give us hope, and that hope will cause us to be proactive. And when we have the wherewithal to help, it will put us into a position to get very proactive in the world that needs our attention more than it ever has. And so hope, you know, comes from magic, and I think that is what movies can give people. They can give people hope that there will be a reason to fight on to the next day. The hope is everything for me.
Thank you for ending on such a magical note, and thank you for bringing this film to Cannes. Thank you all.